My brother stole 400,000 using my identity. Then I got revenge. You know that feeling when your entire world flips upside down with a single phone call? I thought I was having a normal Tuesday morning, prepping vegetables for the lunch rush at my food truck when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Sarah Chen, this is Agent Rodriguez from the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division. We need to discuss some serious discrepancies in your tax filings. My hands went cold. I had filed my taxes through my accountant like always, paid every penny I owed for my small business. I mean, I run a food truck called Noodle Dreams. Not exactly a criminal empire here. I think there's been a mistake, I said, setting down my knife because my hands were shaking. I haven't filed anything unusual. Ma'am, according to our records, you claimed 4 dependents, business expenses for a marketing consulting firm, and deducted $78,000 in equipment purchases. We have evidence of multiple fraudulent filings over the past 3 years. I nearly dropped the phone. 4 dependents. I'm single with no kids, marketing consulting. I sell pad thai from a truck. This had to be identity theft or some computer error. But as Agent Rodriguez explained the situation, a horrible realization crept over me. Someone with access to my personal information had been filing fake tax returns in my name. Someone who knew my social security number, my business details, my family information. Someone like my brother Marcus. Let me back up here because understanding Marcus is crucial to this whole mess. He's 5 years younger than me and has been the golden child since birth, where I had to work 3 jobs to put myself through community college. Marcus got a free ride to UC Berkeley that he dropped out of junior year to pursue his entrepreneurial dreams. Where I spent my 20s building my food truck business from the ground up, Marcus has been living in a luxury apartment in downtown San Francisco, supposedly running his own digital marketing agency. The thing is, I had never actually seen any clients or work from this agency, but Marcus always had money for expensive dinners, designer clothes, a BMW that cost more than I make in 6 months. My parents were so proud of their successful son, while I was just the middle child grinding it out with honest work. Our older sister Lisa moved to Portland years ago and barely talks to the family anymore. She always said Marcus was trouble, but my parents dismissed her warnings as jealousy. That left me as the responsible one who helped with family finances, kept track of everyone's information for insurance and taxes, the one who had access to the family safe where important documents lived, the same safe Marcus had access to. After that phone call, I closed the food truck early and drove straight to my accountant's office. Mr. Peterson had been doing my taxes for 5 years and looked as confused as I felt when I explained the situation. Sarah, I only filed what you gave me. These other returns, someone else prepared these using a different tax preparer ID number, he said, pulling up records on his computer. Look at this, they're claiming you own Chen Digital Solutions LLC and have 4 employees. I've never heard of Chen Digital Solutions, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, pieces started clicking together. Marcus had mentioned working with different Chen family businesses, said he was helping expand our family's entrepreneurial legacy. I thought he was just being grandiose, but maybe there was more to it. Over the next week, as I gathered documents for the IRS investigation, the full scope of the fraud became clear. Marcus hadn't just used my information, he had created fake businesses using our father's name too, claimed our elderly grandmother as a dependent on multiple returns, even filed returns, claiming our family's restaurant equipment as business deductions for his fake companies. The worst part, he was good at it. Sophisticated even. He had created legitimate-looking business documents, fake invoices, even a professional website for Chen Digital Solutions that looked real enough to fool anyone who didn't dig too deep. But while Marcus was playing successful entrepreneur with stolen identities, the IRS was calculating that our family owed over $200,000 in back taxes and penalties. My food truck license was under review, and I faced potential criminal charges if I couldn't prove my innocence. Meanwhile, my parents were planning to make Marcus the sole beneficiary of their estate because they believed he was the only financially responsible child. The breaking point came at Sunday dinner 3 weeks later. I had been gathering evidence and working with lawyers, but I hadn't confronted Marcus directly yet. I was scared, honestly, scared of destroying our family, scared of being wrong despite all the evidence. But that night, Marcus showed up wearing a new Rolex and talking about his latest business deal. I'm expanding into cryptocurrency consulting, he announced, cutting into Mom's pot roast like he owned the world. Just closed a $50,000 contract with a tech startup. That's wonderful, honey. Mom beamed. You're so entrepreneurial, not like some people who are content with their little food trucks. The dig at me was subtle but clear. I felt my face flush as Marcus smirked across the table. Actually, Marcus, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I've been meaning to ask about your business. The IRS contacted me about some confusion with tax filings, and they mentioned Chen Digital Solutions. For just a second, his fork paused midway to his mouth. Then he laughed. Oh, that, yeah, I've been using the family name for some consulting work. Builds credibility, you know, nothing major. Nothing major, I repeated. They said someone filed returns claiming I own that company. Probably just a clerical error, Marcus said smoothly. You know how bureaucratic the government is. I'll make some calls tomorrow and sort it out. Dad nodded approvingly. See, Sarah, Marcus will take care of it. He understands business better than any of us. That's when I snapped. Take care of it, I said, standing up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. Marcus has been filing fraudulent tax returns using our Social Security numbers for 3 years. The family owes over $200,000 because of his fake businesses, and I'm facing criminal charges. The silence around the dinner table was deafening. Marcus recovered first, his face the picture of wounded innocence. Sarah, what are you talking about? Why would you accuse me of something like that? Because Agent Rodriguez, from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, showed me the paperwork. I pulled out the folder I had brought, spreading documents across Mom's dining table. Here's a tax return filed in my name, claiming I have 4 employees and $78,000 in equipment. Deductions. Here's one using Dad's Social Security number for a fake construction company. Mom picked up one of the papers with shaking hands. This has your name on it, Marcus, as the tax preparer. That's impossible, Marcus said, but I could see sweat forming on his forehead. Someone must have stolen my identity too. This is clearly a sophisticated fraud ring. Really? I said, pulling out my phone. Because I called the address listed for your tax preparer license. It's your apartment building. The room erupted. Dad started yelling about family loyalty. Mom was crying. Marcus was demanding to know why I was trying to destroy him. But I had opened Pandora's box, and there was no going back. Marcus stormed out that night, but not before grabbing his laptop bag and making a comment about having to clean up messes created by jealous siblings. I drove home feeling sick. Destroying my family wasn't part of the plan, but I also couldn't go to prison for crimes I didn't commit. The next morning brought an unexpected call that changed everything. Is this Sarah Chen? A young woman's voice asked. I got your number from a mutual friend. I think we need to talk about Marcus. Her name was Jessica Liu, and she had a story that made my stomach drop. For the past 8 months, she had been dating Marcus online. They met on a professional networking app where he presented himself as a successful entrepreneur. He had sent her photos of expensive cars, luxury apartments, business meetings, even documents showing his company's success. But Jessica wasn't just any random woman. Her father was Agent David Liu, a federal tax investigator, and she had been inadvertently sharing information about IRS investigations with her boyfriend Marcus, thinking she was just venting about her dad's stressful work. He always asked such thoughtful questions about my father's cases, Jessica said when we met for coffee. I thought he was just being supportive, but looking back, he was definitely fishing for information. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Marcus hadn't just been committing tax fraud, he had been using inside information to stay ahead of investigations. He knew which returns were being flagged, which cases were getting priority attention, how long he had before certain audits would begin. There's something else, Jessica said, pulling out her phone. I screen recorded some of our video calls because I was starting to get suspicious. In this one from last week, he's bragging about his tax strategies. She showed me a video of Marcus, in his apartment, clearly drunk, gesturing with a glass of wine while explaining to Jessica how he had built his lifestyle. The beauty of family businesses is everyone trusts each other, he was saying in the recording. I file returns for companies that technically exist on paper, claim dependents who can't complain, use equipment deductions for stuff that technically belongs to someone in the family. The IRS processes thousands of returns daily. They can't catch everything. But what if you get audited? Jessica's voice asked from the recording. Marcus laughed. That's where having an inside source helps. Your dad's department is so overworked they only go after the obvious cases first. By the time they get to the sophisticated stuff, I've already moved the money offshore. I stared at the phone screen. watching my brother casually admit to crimes that were destroying my life, using information from the daughter of a federal agent to cover his tracks. I need to show this to the authorities, I said. That's why I called you, Jessica replied. My father wants to use this as evidence. But we need Marcus to incriminate himself further on record, with official oversight. What happened next was like something out of a movie. Agent Lou and his team worked with Jessica to set up a sting operation. They would arrange a meeting where Marcus thought he was impressing his girlfriend with his business success. But actually, he would be confessing to federal crimes on camera. The plan was elaborate but simple. Jessica would tell Marcus she wanted to meet in person finally. They would have dinner at an upscale restaurant where Marcus would want to show off. The restaurant would be under surveillance, and Jessica would guide the conversation toward his business practices. My role was to provide additional evidence and background, but I also had a personal stake in this if we couldn't prove Marcus was the real criminal. I was still facing $78,000 in penalties and potential prison time. The night of the sting, I sat in an unmarked van outside the restaurant, listening to the conversation through Jessica's wire, watching Marcus through surveillance cameras as he ordered expensive wine and started bragging about his latest schemes. You wouldn't believe how easy it is to manipulate tax systems, Marcus was saying. Last month I filed 15 different returns using my family's information. Claimed my grandmother died 3 different times for inheritance deductions. The government just processes everything automatically. Isn't that risky? Jessica asked, playing her role perfectly. Not when you know which cases are being investigated, Marcus replied. Your father's department focuses on big corporations first. Small family stuff flies under the radar for months by the time they catch up. I've already extracted the refunds and moved everything to cryptocurrency accounts. I listened to him describe using our father's business license to create fake construction companies, filing returns that claimed our food truck as business equipment for multiple fake entities, even using our elderly neighbors' names and social security numbers that he had access to through helping with their taxes. But the most damning part came when Jessica asked about consequences. What happens to your family when this gets discovered? She asked. Marcus shrugged in the video feed. They'll figure it out eventually. Sarah's tough enough to handle some IRS trouble, and my parents have enough money to pay whatever penalties come up. Besides, they'd rather see 1 successful son than 3 struggling children. Hearing him casually dismiss my potential imprisonment while sipping $100 wine made me want to storm into that restaurant. But Agent Lou kept me in the van. We need everything on record, he said. This is bigger than just your case now. By the end of the dinner, Marcus had confessed to filing over 40 fraudulent tax returns, stealing more than $300,000 in refunds, using inside information to avoid detection, and creating fake businesses in 6 different states. He also admitted to catfishing 12 other women online, including 2 other daughters of law enforcement officials, extracting information about ongoing investigations across multiple federal agencies. The arrest happened as Marcus walked Jessica to her car. Federal agents surrounded him in the parking lot while he was still bragging about his next business venture. The look of confusion, and then terror on his face when he realized Jessica wasn't who he thought she was, will stay with me forever. Within hours, agents were searching Marcus's apartment, seizing computers, phones, financial documents, and boxes of fake business materials. They found evidence of crimes spanning 3 years and involving over 200 victims. The luxury apartment, the BMW, the designer clothes, everything was bought with stolen tax refunds. But even more shocking was discovering that Marcus had been planning to expand his operation. He had already gathered personal information for dozens of extended family members and family friends, preparing to file fraudulent returns for everyone he could access. My parents' reaction was heartbreaking. They couldn't believe their golden child was a criminal. Initially, they blamed me for setting Marcus up, accused me of being jealous and vindictive. But as more evidence emerged, the denial became harder to maintain. The fake businesses weren't just using our family information. Marcus had created an entire network of shell companies, fraudulent partnerships, and fake employee records. He had claimed our family restaurant as a business expense for 17 different fake companies, used our grandmother's social security number to file returns in 5 states, and even filed fake death certificates to claim inheritance deductions. But perhaps the cruelest part was discovering that Marcus had been planning to let me take the blame for everything. When investigators searched his computer, they found emails discussing how to frame his fraud as identity theft committed by his siblings. He had actually been building a case to make me and Lisa look like the criminals while he played the innocent victim. The legal resolution came faster than I expected, with video evidence of Marcus confessing to federal crimes, plus the mountains of documentation seized from his apartment. The prosecution had an airtight case. He pled guilty to 15 counts of tax fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy charges. The sentence was 8 years in federal prison plus full restitution to all victims. The court ordered him to pay back over $400,000 in fraudulent refunds, plus penalties and interest. His luxury lifestyle was completely dismantled. The apartment lease terminated, the BMW repossessed. Even his designer clothing was sold at auction to help pay victims. For my family, the aftermath was complicated. My parents had to face that their successful son was a criminal who had stolen from them and put the entire family at risk. They spent months in family therapy trying to understand how they had missed such obvious warning signs. But eventually they came around to supporting me through the legal process. The IRS dropped all charges against me once the investigation proved I was a victim rather than a perpetrator. They also cleared my food truck business and actually helped me recover some of the money Marcus had stolen using my identity, but the real vindication came from an unexpected source. The case generated significant media attention. A story about a food truck owner who helped bring down a sophisticated tax fraud ring made headlines across the Bay Area. Suddenly everyone wanted to try the noodles from the woman who had taken on federal criminals and won. My business tripled almost overnight. I had lines around the block, catering requests from major companies, and even a book deal to tell my story. Within 6 months, I was able to buy a second food truck and hire 3 employees. The irony wasn't lost on me that Marcus's crimes had actually made me more successful than I ever imagined possible. While he sat in federal prison, I was building the legitimate business empire he had always pretended to run. My parents eventually changed their will, removing Marcus as beneficiary and splitting the estate between me and Lisa. They also started volunteering with a non-profit that helps small business owners navigate tax issues, trying to make amends for enabling Marcus's behavior for so long. Jessica Lou became an unlikely friend through this process. She left her job in marketing and went back to school to study criminal justice. Inspired by how her father's work had helped bring Marcus to justice, we still meet for coffee sometimes and laugh about how a fake online relationship led to taking down a real criminal enterprise. The last I heard, Marcus was working in the prison kitchen and taking accounting classes. Supposedly, he wants to become a legitimate tax preparer when he gets out. Though given his felony record that seems unlikely, he's also required to pay me and the other victims monthly restitution for the next 20 years. Sometimes, I drive past the restaurant where he was arrested and remember that night sitting in the surveillance van, listening to my brother casually destroy other people's lives while drinking expensive wine. I think about how close I came to going to prison for his crimes. How my family almost lost everything because we trusted someone who saw us as resources to exploit rather than people to protect. But mostly I think about how justice sometimes comes in unexpected forms. Marcus spent years building a fake empire based on lies and theft, while I spent years building a real business based on hard work and honest food. In the end, his crimes brought attention to my legitimate success while destroying his fraudulent lifestyle completely. Today my food truck business is thriving. I have 4 trucks now and we're opening a brick-and-mortar restaurant next year. I employ 12 people and pay every penny of taxes I owe with pride. Marcus, meanwhile, has 7 more years of federal prison ahead of him, followed by decades of supervised release and restitution payments. The golden child turned out to be fool's gold, but sometimes that's exactly the lesson a family needs to learn.